8 Sinister Craigslist encounters, unexplained horrors that will leave you haunted and sleepless. Early one sleepless night, Sarah sat in her dark living room, staring at her phone. The plastic screen glowed ominously, its light barely cutting through the pitch-black shadows of her apartment. She scrolled through Craigslist with a sinking heart, desperate for hope, but all that met her were words that clawed at her sanity. 8 Sinister Craigslist encounters, unexplained horrors that will leave you haunted and sleepless. The title leaped from the screen like the flicker of a dying light bulb, taunting, warning, beckoning. Each listing she read felt like peering over a cliff's edge into an abyss. People vanishing after meeting with clients. My heart raced. Packages that bring nothing but dread. Sweat ran down her back, chilling her even in the oppressive heat. But her reality, with the eviction notice on the fridge, dulled the sharp edge of her fear. She read on. Shadows danced in her peripheral vision. It was then that she stumbled upon a listing from a client named Artisan_89. The project was everything Sarah had longed for: a mural that could transform the local community center, thick with the promise of good pay. It shimmered like a mirage before her weary eyes. Fueled by a flickering hope, she composed a message in haste, ignoring the vague details and that unsettling tone lurking within Artisan_89's responses. As she hit send, a shiver crept down her spine. Days turned into an unsettling blur. That afternoon, while exploring the mural site, an old man appeared out of nowhere. His eyes glinted, wild and full of something unnameable. "You must stay away from the shadows," he rasped, a quiver slicing through his voice. Chills gripped Sarah's spine. She brushed him off, chuckling nervously, but unease settled in the pit of her stomach. Back at home, her children innocent, beautiful Lily and Max spoke of a man with crazy eyes who had approached them while they played outside. "He said he was our mom's client," Max chirped, laughter bubbling on his lips. But dread seized Sarah. Panic surged, and she squeezed her eyes shut, breathing heavily. No! She had thought this was a lifeline, but now it felt like quicksand. The messages from Artisan_89 grew weirder, arriving more frequently with odd jobs that seemed benign, yet dripped with an underlying malice. Delivering packages that smelled of decay. Moving furniture from dark, damp homes that filled her with dread, but she found it impossible to say no. Every time she thought about quitting, bills screamed for attention. And Mr. Caldwell, the usually friendly neighbor, lingered too long at her door. His smile shifted, becoming a close-lipped grin that felt more predatory than kind. Sarah could feel the uncertainty in her bones, a creeping, consuming dread. "You're overreacting," the police said when she reported her fears, their dismissive smiles stinging like cold water. Each passing day, she felt the world around her darken, those innocent shadows now haunted by whispers. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The neighborhood barbecue approached, an opportunity to confront Mr. Caldwell and illuminate the shadows that loomed over her family. But as she stood there, the metallic air clung to her skin, heavy with a sense of dread. Her neighbors looked different. Their eyes flickered from her to Caldwell, whispers hungrily hanging in the air like smoke. She took a breath, pushing past strange feelings and stepping towards him. The crowd shifted, their eyes narrowing, followings pinching into a deadly focus. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, an unmistakable voice, low and thin, called her name from the shadows. It slithered, beckoning her deeper into a dark unknown. And in that moment, she realized the nightmare was only just beginning. The voice whispered her name again, slinking through the air like a serpent. Its familiar pitch was both a comfort and a curse. Sarah's heart raced as she scanned the area for the source. She saw nothing but shadows, stretching longer beneath the dying light. The atmosphere thickened, each breath became a labor, her skin prickling with static. Mr. Caldwell shifted, his smile still plastered across his face, though now it twisted into something grotesque. The crowd buzzed with a low murmur, eyes like black holes absorbing her. "Are you okay, Sarah?" he asked, his tone silky yet sharp, cutting through her resolve. I need to talk to you," she managed, the words clawing their way out. But before she could take a step closer, a cold gust of wind swept through, sending a shiver racing from her head to her toes. The shadows around her seemed to pulse, and she felt the weight of dozens of gazes pinning her down, waiting, judging. Behind Mr. Caldwell, she caught a brief glimpse of some form lurking just beyond the flickering porch light. It was quick but unmistakable, a figure, a reminder that the depths of darkness often conceal unspeakable horrors. "Sarah!" the voice hissed again, pulling her attention away. She turned, desperate to find the owner. "Come play with us, play?" The idea clawed at her sanity. Panic ripped through her, and her instincts screamed, "Get away!" She backed up a step, but the crowd responded, shifting as one. It was as if they were forming a barrier, sealing her fate inside their uncanny tight-knit circle. The old man's warning echoed in her mind. "Stay away from the shadows." But now, shadows crept closer. They scraped along the grass and pooled around her feet like dark ink bleeding from a living wound. She felt sick, her stomach flipping, and the need to flee surged. Everything crashed in on her children, the bills, Artisan_89's grotesque demands. This was no longer just about survival. It was about her soul. "Come closer," Caldwell beckoned, his tone deceptively sweet. "You're one of us now." Bile rose in her throat. She turned, fighting through the seething mass of her neighbors who now looked like a twisted version of themselves, eyes too blank, smiles too wide. With every frantic step away, the backyard shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and she felt as if something was emerging from the darkness, something that had been waiting for her to break. "Mommy!" A voice pierced through her confusion. Lily was standing there, her innocent eyes wide, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sarah rushed towards her, the pull of the shadows like chains wanting to drag her back. "Get away from her!" she screamed, pushing through to protect her daughter from the darkness that seemed to loom behind her. But in an instant, the shadows lunged. Figures darted and twisted, forming a chaotic dance that surrounded her. The gasps from the crowd morphed into laughter, haunting and cruel, sharp enough to slice through her resolve. "Stay with us, Sarah. Don't leave. You belong with the shadows," they chanted in an eerie symphony that wrapped around her mind like a cocoon of madness. As the shadows engulfed her vision, a sense of urgency seized her. If she let herself be drawn in, she would lose everything. With a ferocious instinct surging within her, she screamed for her children, and just before the darkness consumed her, she felt a surge of hope. Somehow, she would fight back. But just as the light seemed to flicker within her, a hand seized her wrist, pulling her deeper into the shadowy abyss. The grip was cold, suffocating, and as her heart screamed in defiance, she realized that the real horror was not the shadows themselves but what awaited her at their depths, what had Artisan_89 summoned in the silence. And would she and her children ever see the light again? The shadow that gripped Sarah's wrist tightened like a vice, the chill seeping into her bones. The laughter from her neighbors twisted into a cacophony of malice, echoing around her. They were conjoined in a macabre dance, each face warped with glee, eyes devoid of humanity. The darkness coiling around her felt alive, pulsating with dread. "Mommy!" Lily's cry cut through the chaos, trembling with fear. Sarah fought against the hold, her heartbeat hammering in her chest. She had to break free. The crowd, now a grotesque mass of distorted figures, swayed as one, whispering her name in a rhythmic chant that sent shivers down her spine. "Don't let them take you!" A familiar face emerged from the throng. It was Mrs. Thompson, the local librarian. But her features were twisted, her mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. "Join us, Sarah. Embrace the shadows. They hold the truth." The word truth sliced through the haze. What truth? With each pulse of darkness, the answer lurked just at the edge of her mind. In her panic, she recalled the rumors. Artisan_89's messages spoke of binding deals and shadowy figures, whispers of losing oneself to the darkness. Had she opened a door she couldn't close? Stay away from her! She shouted, swinging her free arm in a desperate arc, striking Mrs. Thompson across the cheek. The blow seemed to reverberate, sending the crowd into startled silence. But before triumph could swell within her, the stillness shattered as Caldwell stepped forward, his smile now warping into something grotesque. "Foolish girl," he cooed. "You think you can escape the inevitable? You know this is where you belong. The shadows shield you, protect you." The wind whipped around Sarah, howling with intense fury as it seemed to resonate with Caldwell's words, weaving a lattice of unseen force around her. The specter behind him morphed into a tangible shape, a towering form cloaked in a black veil, indistinct yet imposing. A mouth, filled with rows of glistening teeth, opened in the dark like an abyss beckoning her closer. "Join us, Sarah. Surrender to your fate." "No!" she screamed, feeling the surge of adrenaline spike through her, igniting a fire within her that she had thought extinguished. Sarah used every ounce of strength left within her to wrench herself from the cold grip. The shadows recoiled momentarily, and with a primal scream, she pulled Lily into her arms, shielding her from the encroaching darkness. "Run!" she gasped, her breath hitching in her throat as she pressed forward into the throng. The crowd parted as if in disbelief, the chanted incantations halting, a moment of uncertainty flickering in their hollow eyes. She didn't look back. She couldn't. But as the darkness threatened to pull her in, she felt a maternal fire blaze in her heart. She was fighting not just for herself, but for her children, to keep them from the snare of despair. Distant memories of sunlight, warmth, and laughter surged through her mind. "Run, keep going!" she urged Lily, her voice rising above the oppressive gloom. They stumbled through the remnants of the crowd, a blur of shadows and laughter, feeling the thin thread of hope fracturing with every step. But the figure remained Caldwell, and the cloaked monstrosity followed, relentless, as the air crackled with tension. Outside the ring of darkness, the world felt muffled, unreal. The evening air quivered dangerously. The path ahead appeared to ripple under a haze, and the sinister whispers escalated once more, calling for her to return. Behind her, the shadows twisted angrily, hungry to reclaim their prize. "Mommy!" Lily's trembling voice broke through her focus. Sarah turned just as they reached the edge of the yard, the last line of defense. "What if it's too far?" Lily whispered, clinging tightly to her. A massive shadow, darker than night, erupted from the depths. Its growl reverberated through their bones, the darkness shifting, greedy. In that moment, Sarah understood. The choice lay between succumbing to the lurking horror or finding a way to stop what Artisan_89 had unleashed. As fear clawed at her throat, she knew one truth above all else: there was no easy way out. Would she have the strength to fight the shadows, or would they drag her and her children back into eternal night? The ground beneath her trembled, and a glimmer of light sparked far and distant. Was it too late? Hope flickered, fragile yet palpable, but just as she stepped forward, something deep within the shadows began to awaken, and whatever it was, it craved more than just her submission. Would she find the way to save herself and her children, or would she lose them forever to the dark abyss? As the massive shadow surged forward, Sarah tightened her grip on Lily. The ground seemed to ripple underfoot, a palpable pulse that matched the rhythm of her racing heart. A blinding light flickered in the distance, stark against the consuming darkness. It beckoned like a siren, promising safety and solace, but the looming figure behind them whispered of treachery and despair. "What do we do?" Lily's voice was barely above a whisper, trembling like a fragile leaf. "Keep running!" Sarah shouted, finding an ember of determination in her chest. She locked eyes with the glowing light. It felt like hope, a lifeline thrown in the chaos. If they could just reach it, they might escape the horrors that clawed at their backs. The shadows writhed, clawing towards them, a mass of anger and longing, each tendril reaching eagerly, whispering their twisted promises. "Stay with us, Sarah," Caldwell's voice floated through the air, smooth like silk but laced with venom. You belong to the shadows now, you just have to let go. No! She screamed, her voice cracking as she stumbled forward. Every ounce of her being pulled her towards the light, willing her feet to move faster. But the weight of dread hung thick, each step feeling weighted by despair. Lily lagged behind, her little legs struggling to keep pace. In a moment of panic, Sarah glanced back. The grotesque figures melted into grotesque motion, grinning wide with malicious interest, each face leaving a mark of dread etched into her mind. "Don't look back!" Sarah yelled, turning her focus back to the ahead. The warm glow pulsed brighter, and she pushed forward, her breath coming in ragged gasps. But behind her, the darkness surged, hungry and relentless. Just as they neared the light, an icy wind swept through the yard, chilling them to the bone, causing them to falter. The force threatened to sweep them backward, but Sarah dug her heels into the ground. With a roar echoing from the depths, the shadow lunged, its dark tendrils wrapping around Sarah's legs, dragging her back. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, reaching out to her, but the darkness stifled the sound, twisting it into a haunting echo. Sarah fought harder, her vision narrowing to the glowing light that flickered like a dying star. "Please! Don't let go!" The words spilled from her lips in desperation. Caleb's cruel laughter mingled with the cold wind, a chilling reminder of the fate that awaited her. "Your fight is futile, Sarah," he taunted, the darkness coiling around her wrists like a snake tightening its grip. "We've been waiting for you." The whispering grew louder, enveloping them in a cacophony of taunts and promises as the shadows slithered around her body, racing towards her children. Something deep inside her roared back, a primal instinct to protect igniting the fire within. She glanced toward Lily, who stood at the edge of the creeping shadows, wide-eyed and terrified. It was then Sarah noticed the sharp contrast. Her daughter was illuminated, almost ethereal against the wrongness behind her. "Lily!" she cried, her heart exploding with determination. "Run! Get to the light!" Without hesitation, Lily nodded. In a breathtaking flash, she sprinted toward the glow, her small form glowing brighter with each step. The shadows recoiled as if pained, howling with rage. "Stop her!" Caldwell shouted, and the darkness lunged, fangs bared, desperate to reclaim its prey. Sarah lunged forward just in time, wrenching free from the shadows clinging to her and dashing towards Lily. Together, they raced for safety, the pull of the shadows intensifying, gnashing empty threats and promises of despair. "Almost there," Sarah urged, panic urging her limbs faster. The radiant light pulsed undeterred, a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. But as they reached the edge of the light, a dark tendril shot out, lashed around her ankle. Sarah gasped, falling to the ground. The force was like ice, chilling her entire being, blinding her with fear. "Mommy!" Lily cried, tears streaming down her face as she stretched out her tiny hand. "No! Lily, go!" Sarah shouted, the shadows clawing at her. Terror coursed through her veins as she felt the grip tightening, pulling her into their depths. In that moment, with the light flickering against the might of darkness, a chilling realization struck her. The shadows weren't just after her, they wanted her child too. With every ounce of love surging within her, Sarah screamed, "I won't let them take you. I promise." But as the shadows roared in triumph, a terrifying thought slashed through her mind. What if the light was just another trap? What if it led to a fate worse than the darkness behind? And at that question, the shadows twisted, cackled, and began to merge. Something sinister began to rise, and Sarah felt her breath hitch. Was there really hope waiting, or had they already stepped into the depths of despair? As the light flickered one last time, the answer began to unravel in the shadows. Did they rush headlong into danger, or could the dark finally unveil the truth behind Artisan_89's dark tapestry? The ground shuddered as the shadows twisted and reformed behind Sarah, a writhing mass exploding with fury. She could feel the icy grip on her ankle tightening, pulling her down toward an abyss of despair. Panic surged, a tidal wave pushing against the instinct to surrender. "Lily!" she shrieked, her heart pounding like a drum. "Run now!" The little girl hesitated, glancing back, fear dancing in her wide eyes. Mommy! Don't look back. Go! With one last look, her spirit glowing like a beacon, Lily turned and bolted into the light. The pulsing warmth radiated, a stark contrast to the frigid tendrils that ensnared Sarah. She felt tear ducts squeeze and bitterness rise in her throat. The shadows had no intention of releasing her, and as she fought, their laughter twisted her resolve. The darkness around her thickened, a storm of despair swirling in the air. "Join us," Sarah Caldwell whispered, and the very sound echoed in her mind like a haunting symphony. "You can't fight what you crave. You've always belonged." "No!" she cried, summoning a last flicker of strength. She pulled, yanked at the dark mass that gripped her, but it was like grappling with smoke. The menacing figures lounged closer, their faces twisted and grinning, a grotesque gallery of nightmares. Frantic, Sarah's thoughts started. She needed a plan. If Lily reached the light, if she could hold on to hope just long enough, maybe they could escape. Visions of their home, bright and safe, flooded her mind. Warm dinners, bedtime stories, laughter. "Stay away from her!" Sarah screamed, a fierce roar igniting from deep within her. In that moment, she repulsed the voices surrounding her, anger surging hot like molten lava. The shadows recoiled as if her intensity burned them. The grip on her ankles slackened just enough for her to stagger forward. But the relief was short-lived. A massive shadow reached for her, looming and menacing, its outline pulsating with menace. "You think you can defy your destiny? You let your child run into danger. She'll never escape the darkness without you." Reality twisted as a deep chill seeped into her skin. The light flickered, dimming like a heartbeat slowing. She could hear the muffled cries of Lily, surrounded by the sinister figures dancing just beyond the glow. The little girl was rich with potential, an undiluted source of light in a world codified into shadows. Then, something shifted. The surrounding darkness shook with feral ecstasy, morphing into sharp shapes, glistening with hunger. Flames of doubt flickered in Sarah's mind, fear pulled in her stomach as she thought of what might unfold should she let the shadows win. "Your daughter needs a mother," Sarah Caleb said, his presence swelling behind her, breath chilling the air, and a guardian of darkness. "Embrace it." A surge of unwilling curiosity struck. What if no? The thought was poison. This was how they got you, by planting seeds of doubt. She had to hold on to the light, to Lily. In that moment of uncertainty, a wave of clarity washed over her. The light ahead burgeoned brighter, flaring with the strength of a dying sun, illuminating the cold terror standing behind her. If the darkness craved control, then she must refuse to break, refuse to bend. "Lily!" she shouted into the light, forceful as though it could bridge the space between them. "Stay strong! I'm coming!" Sarah summoned everything she had left, wrenching herself free from the shadows altogether with a mighty pull, the sensation invigorating. She dashed towards Lily, the light calling her forward with an intensity she had never felt before. But the shadows moaned, agitated, twisting, biting at her heels, enraged by her defiance. They lunged, hissing threats that echoed in terror across the yard. As Sarah reached the brink of the light, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows. She glanced back and froze. The darkness surged forward, a wave of fury threatening to engulf them in one violent move. Just then, a crack of clarity pierced through the chaos of vision of the truth. The light wasn't salvation, it was a fire that could burn the shadows away, but only if she truly believed. With a primal scream, Sarah propelled forward, her soul igniting with hope and rage. She shot into the light, bracing for impact, bracing for everything to change. But just as she thought they would breach safety, a chilling voice, dripping with malice, echoed behind them. "You'll never be free, not while you hold on to the light." And with that, something shifted in the ground beneath her, an unsettling tremor that promised the worst was still yet to come. Could they truly escape, or had the darkness already woven itself too tightly into their fates? The truth was far from over. Light engulfed Sarah as she burst into the radiant sphere, but the shadows clawed at her, trying to pull her back into their insidious grasp. The illumination illuminated the yard, yet it felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, where one misstep would plunge her into darkness. "Mommy!" shouted Lily, her tiny voice strained. The weight of fear settled in Sarah's chest, heavy as stone. She turned, heart racing, ready to protect her daughter at all costs. The transition from shadow to light was not what she'd envisioned. It didn't banish the darkness, rather, it ignited a furious whirlwind of both. The shadows heaved, pulsating like a beast wounded by their departure. Tongues of darkness lashed out, slithering across the ground in wild, frantic movements. "Lily, stay behind me," Sarah ordered, adrenaline surging through her veins. But her command rang hollow in the stillness. The moment felt suspended, time stretching like a taut rope. She felt every heartbeat thudding in her ears, and it took every ounce of her will to keep from letting the fears seep in. Suddenly, two silhouettes emerged from the void, haggard faces twisted in malicious glee. It was Caldwell and Caleb, their eyes blazing with uncontainable fervor. "You think you have one? Oh, you will never truly escape, the shadows are everywhere. Leave us alone!" Sarah shouted, desperation sharp as a knife. With rage fueling her, she stepped into a defensive stance, willing to confront what threatened to tear her apart. As their laughter echoed, a new wave of darkness pulled beneath her feet, swirling like a living entity, hungry for her essence. It clawed at her mind, whispering truths soaked in twisted threat. "You crave the darkness, Sarah. You've always belonged with us." Let go. The shadows began to churn around her, enchanting and gripping, each oily tendril brushing against her skin like ice. A surge of nausea twisted her stomach. Thoughts of Lily flickered like a candle in a storm, and the images of home, of safety, blasted through her head. "No!" she roared, shaking her head as if to dismiss the creeping doubt. "I want to be your prisoner." With a fierce resolve, she lunged forward, drawing upon every last vestige of her strength. But the darkness reacted. A shadowy hand shot out, seizing her wrist with an agonizing grip that felt like frostbite. "Embrace it," Caldwell hissed. A cruel smile spread across his lips. "You can have power beyond imagination if you just relinquish your bonds to those pitiful lights." Sarah felt a flicker of temptation tugging at her visions of control and strength, the ability to command the shadows. It angered her to even think it, but a part of her was terrified of her own refusal. "Lily needs you to fight, Mommy!" The little girl's voice broke through the haze, piercing clarity in the chaos. That call ignited something deep within Sarah. A fire blazed within her heart. She pulled on the memories, the warmth of Lily's embrace, the laughter shared over bedtime stories. It pulled her back from the brink of surrender. With a guttural shout, Sarah wrenched herself free, driving straight toward Lily, their glow intensifying in response. Just then, the shadows hesitated, and fear rippled through them, making them falter. "Together!" Sarah shouted, grabbing Lily's hand. The moment their fingers touched, a searing lightning bolt erupted from them. The warmth pulsed, surging against the darkness. But the shadows fought back, a tidal wave of rage crashing forward. "Release her!" Caleb shrieked, launching forward, dark tendrils aiming for Lily, yearning for her light. Desperation gripped Sarah's heart as she shielded her daughter with her own body, trembling but resolute. Then she saw a flicker of something glimmering in the shadows, almost like an opening. A path through the chaos, a chance to escape. It called to her. "Now, Lily! Run!" she yelled. And while the girl darted with the agility of pure instinct, Sarah faced the wrath of the shadowed entity. "Fleeing? After everything we've promised you?" Caldwell's voice chilled her spine, dripping with venomous delight. But Sarah's heart was set. She turned, stepping toward that glimmer, anchoring her will into the belief that she could escape. As she did, the darkness shrieked and twisted, unraveling around her like a frayed rope. Yet before she could reach the escape, an even larger shadow lunged toward her, wrapping around her like an ever-encroaching fog, blocking her path. "Not yet, Sarah, your choices have only just begun." In that instant, realization hit her like an avalanche. This was not merely a fight for freedom. It was an intricately woven web of choices, and every selection would bring them closer to a terrifying fate. Where would these choices lead them next, and what horrors awaited just beyond their sanctuary of light? As the shadows flooded in, Sarah realized all too well the true dread was still lurking, waiting to reveal itself at the end of this harrowing ordeal. Could they withstand the darkness creeping closer, or was this just the beginning of a much more sinister game? The darkness swirled, a living entity with gnashing teeth. It loomed over Sarah like an oppressive storm, taunting her with promises of what she could gain if only she surrendered. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to grasp Lily and escape into the flickering light. But as the shadows tightened their grip, her breath became shallow, and doubt seeped into her mind, gnawing at her resolve. "Mommy!" Lily's voice trembled, laced with fear, pulling Sarah back from the abyss of uncertainty. The fragile glimmer of hope flickered like a candle in a tempest. "Hang on to me, sweetheart. We're getting out of this." With trembling hands, Sarah gripped Lily tighter, feeling the warmth of her daughter a lifeline against the encroaching cold. The shadows hissed, a grotesque symphony of whispers swirling around them. "Your little light won't save you. You can feel it, the power waiting for you. Embrace it, and you might unleash something unimaginable." It was Caldwell's voice, echoing in the darkness with sinister glee. "No!" Sarah shot back, her voice fierce. "You're wrong! I wouldn't give in." Fueled by primal fear, she pushed forward, each step a battle against the darkness threatening to drag her down. Sarah's heart pounded like a drum, drowning out the hissing whispers that offered her freedom through surrender. Then, in the corner of her eye, Sarah glimpsed something, a flash of what looked like a doorway, shimmering against the shadows. It wasn't a physical structure, but a passage, the promise of escape. She poured every ounce of courage into her legs, dragging Lily closer with her. "Look!" she shouted, pointing. "That way." But the shadows roared in defiance, a wall of darkness spitting tendrils and spears made of pure malice. "You can't escape!" Caleb howled, his grotesque face leaning closer, eyes blazing with hunger. "You're ours, Sarah. And now your daughter must choose too. Lily, trust me. Run!" Sarah barked, her voice now a primal scream. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Lily's eyes were wide, brimming with confusion and fear. "Wherever the light takes us." They darted to the glimmer, but just as they reached the edge, a colossal void crashed into them, dark limbs ensnaring them in a sticky embrace. They were pulled back into the depths, limbs flailing as the shadows closed in, suffocating their cries. Lily shrieked, her voice wild. "Mommy, they're everywhere! I can't see! Hold on! Hold on!" Sarah fought against the intangible bindings wrapping around her. In that moment, she felt Lily's terror, a cold realization settling in that their bond was still their greatest strength. "Together, Lily!" Sarah yelled, her will igniting like a fire. "Don't let go!" With a frantic push, she strained to reach that glimmer of light again. Every ounce of maternal love surged through her, igniting a white-hot flame capable of cutting through the shadows. An eruption of light burst forth, illuminating the yard once more, and like a firework, it sent a shockwave through the darkness. The shadows hissed, recoiling. Suddenly, they were airborne, lifted from the ground. But with every inch that brought them closer to salvation, tendrils of darkness lunged at them, gnashing and tearing. Sarah gasped as the cold grasp clawed at her ankle, dragging her back to despair. "Don't look back!" Lily's little voice rang clear, standing strong amidst the pandemonium. With one last defiant lunge, Sarah and Lily crossed the threshold just as the darkness unleashed a howl of furious anguish. They tumbled into the open, crashing onto wet grass. The world around them throbbed with unexpected brightness, but as she gasped for breath, a dreadful realization settled in this sanctuary could be an illusion. As Sarah clutched Lily, her eyes darted around, searching for safety amid the fading tendrils of shadow. What if the darkness had only retreated? Then she saw it, a figure emerging from the swirls, cloaked in shadows but with a smile stretching unnaturally wide. "Welcome to your new reality, Sarah," Caldwell crooned, voice slick with venom. "You can never truly escape." As he stepped forward, the ground quaked beneath their feet, and Sarah's heart dropped at the sight. There was no escape. They were deeper in the game than ever before. Was this merely a new beginning, or a pathway to an even more unfathomable horror? Would they be trapped forever in this relentless cycle of shadows? The question loomed, thick with dread, as the darkness encroached once more. The ground trembled, as if the earth itself was quaking in fear. Cracks spread like greedy veins, swallowing the grass whole. Sarah held Lily close, feeling the child's heart race against her chest, dancing to a frantic rhythm that mirrored her own. Darkness crept toward them, its shadowy fingers unfurling, grasping for their warmth. Caldwell's twisted smile shone brighter against the gloom. "You've made it this far, but trust me, my dear, this is merely the surface of what is to come." "No!" Sarah shouted, her voice cracking under the weight of dread. "We'll fight. I won't let you take us." Caldwell's laughter was a chilling melody that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "You think you can fight what doesn't live in this realm? You're close to my heart now, Sarah. The bond you share with your daughter has awakened something far beyond your understanding." Sarah felt Lily tremble in her arms, fear radiating like ice. "Mommy, what is he talking about?" But there was no time to reassure her daughter, no time for answers. They needed to move, to outrun both the ominous words and the darkness clawing ever closer. "Stay close," Sarah urged, her voice fierce yet laced with desperation. She began to run, pulling Lily through the thickening shadows that swirled at their heels. Each step felt heavier, as though the ground was turning to quicksand beneath them. They raced past the unfamiliar landscape, a nightmare garden of withered trees and thorny vines that twisted menacingly, reaching out as if to grasp them. Shadows whispered lies in their ears, taunts about power and sacrifice. But remorse would be their anchor if she listened. They had escaped once, she would not let doubt choke the hope they clung to. Ahead, an ethereal light pulsed like a heartbeat, flickering between the trees. "There! We can reach it!" Sarah shouted, her eyes locked onto their potential salvation. The whispers grew louder, claws scraping her consciousness, but she pressed on, fueled by this last flicker of light. Then came a chill of freezing sensation that clawed at her skin and seized her heart. Caldwell's voice rang out, louder this time, a growl of dark promise. "You think you can leave? Let us see how long you can hold on to that hope." Sarah's breath quickened as they approached the light, and suddenly, it flickered out a cruel illusion that left them shrouded in darkness once more. Panic surged within her as she stopped. "Don't give up," she urged herself, but the shadows closed in again, gnashing their unseen teeth, eager to consume. "Mommy! I can't, it's too dark," Lily whimpered, clutching her mother's leg, tears spilling down her cheeks. Feeling helpless was a new kind of horror. "No! We can't give in! We must fight!" But the shadows laughed, Caldwell's voice like a dagger soaked in venom. "Every step you take deepens your despair. You are now part of it, entwined in shadows. Welcome home, Sarah, and dear Lily." A darkness-infused fog spiraled around them, thickening to suffocate reason. They were trapped, ensnared in a realm that fed on their fears. In that moment of darkness, Sarah's mind began to fracture. She was losing grip on reality. Could they even escape? Was there hope when shadows loomed so heavily above? The chilling doubt weighed on her like a leaden shroud. "What now?" Sarah gasped, terror mounting. Then she saw a quick glint, a shimmer peeking through the darkness, promising escape, yet dangerously close to the grasping doom. It flickered and faded like a mirage as Caldwell's form began to coalesce near them, relentlessly playing with their fragile hopes. "Choose," he beckoned, his voice a sinister whisper. "Join me, and I will grant you power beyond your wildest imagination. Powerful enough to dominate the shadows." As he approached, something within Sarah snapped. She grabbed Lily's hand tighter. "We're not joining anything. We are getting out." With a surge of raw defiance, Sarah pivoted, leading Lily toward the light as it flickered back into view. But how much strength did she have left? Was this their salvation or merely another trap? Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath them, lurching violently. The light swelled and dimmed, hope twisted with despair. What awaited on the other side? Could they step through the threshold again, Or was it a cruel taunt from a game rigged against them? "Mommy!" Lily screamed, pulling in closer, feeling the shadows breathe against their backs, hungry and relentless. "Trust me!" Sarah shouted, and in that pivotal moment she wondered, were they truly stronger than the darkness that hunted them? As another howl erupted from the shadows, their ultimate decision loomed before them: jump into the unknown or flee deeper into the terrifying void. The ground shook again, but this time it felt more like a colossal heartbeat, matching the desperate rhythm in Sarah's chest. The shadows enveloped them, pulling tighter, wrapping around their limbs like vipers ready to strike. "Run, Mommy!" Lily cried, her voice a piercing scream that cut through the thick darkness. Sarah ran, driven by a primal instinct that screamed for survival. But the ground felt alive beneath her feet, shifting and reshaping, conspiring to trip her up. The air was saturated with despair, thick and suffocating. Caldwell's shadow loomed behind them, his laugh echoing like thunder, reverberating through the very earth. "You can't escape what you've awoken. The darkness craves your fear. It's everyone's home now." With every step, Sarah felt herself slipping. The world around them pulsed with an alien energy, mocking her every attempt at escape. "We can't stop. Keep moving!" she shouted, desperately urging her daughter on. This wasn't just a chase. It felt like they were running toward a cliff, the abyss waiting to swallow them whole. Ahead, a blur of light flickered again, not the sterile bright beam of hope they needed, but a sickly, flickering glow that illuminated the deformities in the shadows. It cast cruel reflections, twisted faces, contorted screams, mocking them as they drew closer. "Mommy, I see them!" Lily whimpered, pointing to the distorted figures shifting at the edge of the light. They were agonizingly familiar, faces melting together in haunting glimpses of people from Sarah's past, the lost and the broken, all looking toward her with an unsettling blend of sorrow and malicious glee. "Don't look!" Sarah barked, yanking Lily's head toward her shoulder. "Keep running!" The air tasted stale, full of dread, and it chilled her bones. She knew they were too close to something vile and insidious that wanted them just as badly as Caldwell. A piercing howl erupted from the shadows, vibrating through her body, striking terror right into her soul. The low growl morphed into words, cold and commanding. "Join us, Sarah. Embrace the darkness. Fight for power and control, or drown in despair. This isn't who we are." Sarah shouted, but doubt wormed its way in. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was failing her daughter. Each moment wasted piled heaviness on her heart, anchoring them to this nightmare. "We have to leap for it now." With a desperate lunge, Sarah propelled them towards the sickly light, recognizing the edge of a forest thick with twining branches that beckoned like fingers of an unseen beast. The light flickered and faltered, but it was their only chance. As they approached, the ground heaved violently. Sarah stumbled, nearly falling into the overarching shadows that seemed to reach out hungrily. Caldwell's laughter crescendoed, a sickening symphony of darkness. "Your courage will be your undoing." They dove into the light together, but it wasn't bright or warm. It was cold, uninviting, an icy pit that seized hold of them, pulling them away from Caldwell, from the horror. A tunnel, dark and twisting, swallowed them whole. But they were not alone. Whispers filled the air, incoherent yet beckoning, gnarled fingers pulling them further into despair. Shadows clung to them like a second skin, clawing and gnashing. Lily's grip on Sarah's hand tightened, her fingers trembling. "Mommy, where are we going?" "I don't know." Sarah's voice cracked under the weight of fear, panic threading through her words. And then the whispers sharpened, coalescing into a single, insistent chant, resonant with dark promises and twisted truths. "You cannot escape what is destined. You belong to the shadows forever." Frantic, Sarah scanned ahead for any glimmer of hope amidst the swirling darkness. Her heart was hammering in her chest as the shadows began to pulse in time with her anxiety. They had to reverse this course, yet each second felt like a lifetime. And then she saw it, a faint outline materializing through the chaos, a door, an opening that promised deliverance or deeper despair. But first, they had to reach it. "Hold on tight!" Sarah cried, determination fueling her exhausted limbs as she propelled them forward. Would they be free, or was this just another illusion designed to trap them? In that moment, uncertainty loomed larger than the darkness behind them. How much was an illusion, and how much was real? With every step, the door seemed to flicker further away. "Mommy?" Lily whispered, her voice frail yet filled with a flicker of hope. Sarah's heart raced with a new, creeping fear. What if freedom was worse than this prison? What awaited them on the other side? As they hurled toward the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that something far worse than Caldwell awaited lurking just beyond the light. As they hurtled through the darkness, the door loomed larger, its edges glinting faintly. Sarah could feel the dreadful tension winding tighter around them, wrapping her heart in fear, yet the need to escape pressed harder than ever before. They had come too far to lose hope now. "Mommy! I can't keep running!" Lily exclaimed, her voice cracking through the chaos. "Yes, you can," Sarah urged, lifting her daughter as they sped toward the door, pouring every ounce of love and determination into the space between them. "Just a little more." As they sprinted closer, shadows lunged, clawing at their backs with icy fingers. The dreadful whispers rose to a deafening crescendo, taunting and promising despair. "You can't evade your fate. You will embrace the darkness." "Shut up!" Sarah screamed, fury blinding her, forcing her to push harder, to shield Lily with her very being. She envisioned their home, the warmth of the sun casting gleaming light, the laughter they had shared. It was that warmth she clung to as an anchor against the dark tide. A sudden roar erupted from behind. Caldwell surged forward, a grotesque figure luring with promises of power. "You think you can outrun me? You are mine!" His dark silhouette loomed over them, smirking, teeth glinting with wicked delight. "No! We don't belong to you!" Sarah shouted defiantly. Her muscles burned, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire, driving her to break free from the weight of fear. Then, as they approached the door, a blinding light flashed, radiating a warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold shadows. It wrapped around them, coaxing Sarah and Lily forward like a siren's call. "Step into the light," Sarah urged, confident that freedom was at their fingertips. She could feel the glimmer of hope pulsing, beckoning like a heartbeat. With a final surge of strength, they leapt ahead, crossing the threshold of the door just as a massive shadow gripped for them. The moment they breached the barrier, Sarah felt reality shatter around them, collapsing into brilliant hues of white and gold. They landed on the other side on soft grass, under a sunbright sky. The warmth enveloped them, washing away the cold grip of despair. Sarah blinked against the glaring brightness, salt mist from a nearby ocean coloring the air with a fresh scent. We made it!" Lily gasped, her wide eyes shimmering with disbelief and joy. They embraced tightly, laughter bubbling from their chests, laughter that felt deep, genuine, a melody lost amidst shadows for far too long. But something stirred beneath the surface. Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty. They had escaped the physical chains, but had they left the darkness behind for good? From behind her, an echo crept through the serene atmosphere, Caldwell's voice tinged with malice. "You think this is over? Your darkness will never leave you, Sarah. It waits and it grows." As the laughter faded, an unsettling chill swept across the ground, and Sarah's heart sank. The shadows swirled, slowly creeping toward her, forming a dark horizon that blended with the bright warmth around them. "No!" She turned, clutching Lily tighter, face set with determination. "We will fight! You don't own us!" The shadows twisted wildly, clawing toward the pair. Yet their flickering light wasn't extinguished. It pulsed with every beat of their hearts, challenging the darkness. Together, Sarah and Lily called in unison, their voices echoing with fierce unity. With a staggering burst of light, they pushed against the shadows, their connection igniting a wave of warmth that pushed back the encroaching gloom. It surged and swelled like a rising tide, engulfing the darkness with blazing vitality. As the shadows screamed, lurching back, the horizon brightened, flooding the world with clarity. Sarah's heart soared as she realized this was not just escape. It was a declaration of their fight, their resolve against despair. And then, through the brilliance, a figure stepped forth. It was the old man from before, his wild eyes now shining with an inner light. You have conquered the darkness, but remember, it will always be a part of you. Use it to strengthen your light. With realization washing over her, Sarah understood. The shadows were not her enemy. They were a piece of her, something she could learn to control. They would not define her. I will not be afraid, she breathed, the shadows around her fading into the background. Together with Lily, they pushed back against the last remnants, illuminating the space with a blazing fire of courage and love.